past lives really explain everything about we humans. I mean, there are things like our fears, our phobias, our limiting beliefs, a lot of the negative stuff that comes from past life experiences. If you want to understand your purpose, figure out first who you are, because then that explains it. So people want to work on themselves, personal development.
Is it possible for a soul to forget its mission entirely in a life?
We're not all here for some huge purpose. And we shut down who we are. We get influenced by the culture, by the people around us, teachers, parents particularly. And so we get pushed into doing things that we didn't come here to do.
Do you feel like humanity is going through a wider scale upgrade at this moment?
I do feel optimistic for the future, because the future, as my spirit guides will often say, is female. It's feminine. These are older soul women who are set to really sort of make a change in the world.
Ainslie MacLeod, welcome on Just Tap In, brother. What are you most excited about right now globally and in your life?
Oh my gosh. Well, I wasn't expecting that question. So what I'm excited about is that we are seeing there's a lot of duality going on right now, and a lot of tribal stuff, people taking sides all over the place. But what's a sort of side effect of that is that old souls are starting to really come together. You can see it right now with people taking to the streets. And I talk about older souls being people who are more concerned about one another rather than just their own lives. And I think this is all part of the transformation, the shift in consciousness that we're all aware of. Something's happening. It's tending to shine a bit of a spotlight on older soul values. In contrast to the sort of more mainstream values that we're seeing. And I think although it's a very challenging time to be here on the planet, I feel optimistic as long as we don't blow the place up. I do feel optimistic for the future, because the future, as my spirit guides will often say, is female. It's feminine. And there's a lot more women coming into the world as older souls now. You'll see it, politically, socially, so many more women getting into positions of power. You've got the squad in the American government, AOC and others. These are older soul women who are set to really sort of make a change in the world. I mean, the way it's been going on, the more male-oriented world is it's not been working so well for us, and it's to some extent had its day. So we're seeing a shift in consciousness, and we're also unfortunately seeing resistance to it. It's the equal and opposite reaction, if you like, from younger souls who are afraid of the change that they don't understand. And well, that's how I feel sort of globally. There is some optimism there, even though things are pretty dark right now. You asked about personally. Gosh, I think, personally, I feel some shifts going on with my work. I've been doing the spiritual work for now 25 years, and I get every so often it's like getting an upgrade or something, like a new version of software or something. I get it deepens my connection to the spirit world, and it happens every few years that I go through this. And I'm actually kind of going through it now, and it's allowing me to. It's certainly deepening my my psychic abilities. So I'm kind of excited about that, and I've also got some projects that I'm releasing. I'm releasing a course that I feel it's very personally meaningful to me, and I'm actually just talking to my spirit guides right now about perhaps turning this into a book at some point. It's all designed to help people heal from narcissistic abuse, because that's it's a major theme these days, and been a huge theme of my personal life, and it's had a very severe effect on me, and so I've had to do a lot of spiritual work, particularly around healing from the experiences of the past, and a lot of my clients of the people that are drawn to do this kind of work are empaths, but they're very often wounded empaths. These are ones who carry deep-seated fears from past lives, and often with these insecurities and so on, it makes them a target for bullies and narcissists. So I talk to a lot of people who've had that experience, and this is a spiritual issue, which is why narcissists don't heal from therapy or taking medication. It's a deep-rooted spiritual issue. So I've really decided to dedicate a big part of the rest of my life, however long I've got, to helping people who've experienced the kind of thing that I have as well. So
that's beautiful.
It's kind of like the big picture and the more personal.
Wow. Yeah. And to unpack all that you said in there, do you feel like humanity is going through a wider scale upgrade at this moment?
Yes.
Like the personal one that you're going through?
Yeah, it's happening on a global level. It's a little hard to see right now, but this is related to what my spirit guides call the transformation, and this is a shift in consciousness. You hear about it. There's different terms people use. There's no right or wrong. It's just my spirit guides happen to talk about the transformation, but people talk about a shift in consciousness. I mean, that's essentially what it is. We're going from a level of consciousness that we've had for 55,000 years. It's a good long time. It's a stage 3 consciousness. It's what allowed we humans to become creatures of reason and creativity, really to become the people that we are now, and be able to build the kind of world that we live in. But we're going through a shift. I mean, this is, it's over a few generations. I mean, it's not just going to happen next weekend or anything. It's designed to take us to the stage 4 consciousness, which is a level of consciousness that we used to only experience on the astral plane when we were out of the physical plane. And now we're bringing that into our world. And this goes back to what I was saying about how young souls who are in positions of power, so many places these days, they fear this. They've been calling it the counterculture or something for decades. There's this something is going on and they don't understand it, and it's not comfortable. And this will take us to a place of greater empathy and connection, because that's what's missing. It's the difficulty young souls, the experienced souls have, is to recognize that we are all connected. Whereas we, older souls, we do tend to feel that we are all one. And so there's going to be a greater focus on the higher spiritual values like peace, truth, love, and so on. And to some extent, this has been described by my spirit guides as a rescue mission, because the way the world is going it's unsustainable. I mean, it's certainly not working for everybody. So it's coming in the nick of time. We really need it right now.
And when you mentioned that word rescue mission, Do you feel like a lot of the souls that are here right now were called into this rescue mission?
Yeah.
Or was it something that, is just surging with the energies of the planet right now?
It's really funny you should ask me that, because I have done a little reading of you, and you and I share something that a lot of older souls are coming into the world with now, and it's called a mission of change. Now, most people will have a mission of change that, at least the ones I talk to, clients or people who attend events, they have a mission of change that's internal. It's why people want to work on themselves, personal development. But you and I and a lot of other people, a lot of other older souls who are coming into the world, or around this time, have an external mission of change. And it really is about wanting to see a better you, of course, but you want to see a better world as well. So, a big part of what you're doing here is to illuminate, enlighten people about what's going on, and to be a part of initiating a change, a shift in consciousness. And it's very much by design, because it does show up in your life plan. It's not just some sort of accidental thing or something you fell into. It's part of your life plan here to be a force for change.
You said that this is a time of cohesion and community.
Yeah.
And I'd love to go even deeper into that notion of seeing an external change in the world. What is the role of people coming together, old souls and young souls, to create a new iteration of Earth, of humanity, of what we've been seeing in the past?
Yeah, it's interesting you should say that, because it is more old souls that are more concerned. The older souls are more concerned about the state of things. The younger souls tend to they prefer the status quo, and often don't want to rock the boat, or they just like it the way it's always been. It can be sometimes a big fear of change. But the unity, or community, if you like, is such an important part of this, because we old souls have to particularly have to come together. For a lot of people, it's a very isolating experience being in the world the way it is right now. Especially with our devices and internet. Four people at the dinner table all looking at their phones and that sort of thing. We've lost a lot of the connection that we used to get in smaller communities hundreds or thousands of years ago. And a lot of people, even if you could be living in the center of Manhattan, as I did, briefly for a few years, a big apartment block, there's thousands of people there, but I didn't know anybody. And it can be very, very isolating and lonely for old souls. The other thing too that helped with community, and especially with old souls coming together, you start to recognize that your feelings, how you perceive the world, is not you're not just alone. There's a lot of other people out there who see the world through the same kind of lens. And that's very, supportive. It feels good to know you're not alone. And also, it's even learning language to describe your feelings or what's going on. So this is an important thing to, recognize that in a world which is sort of like upside down and things are absolutely not like they were ever meant to be, there's a lot of other people who, along with you as an old soul, want to see a better world and want to be part of the change.
I'm curious to know, Ainslie, why you say that reincarnation explains everything about us.
I do say that. And I've been saying for years, reincarnation explains everything. And then I often will say to people at live events, I'll say, challenge me. Throw anything at me, and I'll show you how it relates to reincarnation. Past lives really explain everything about we humans. I mean, there are things like our fears, our phobias, our limiting beliefs, a lot of the negative stuff that comes from past life experiences. But who we are, our entire personalities are based on who we've been in previous lifetimes. None of us comes into this world as a blank slate. We all come in from the astral plane with a clearly defined personality. And this is a big thing. I do this with every single one of my clients. With one of the first things we do is figure out who they are. Because who you are is why you're here. You choose a personality for the voyage. As I said in my last book, you wouldn't wear flip-flops to climb Mount Everest. So, if you're here to lead, you would choose to be a leader. If you're here to, I don't know, be a musician, you choose a performer in your soul types and your personality. So who we are is chosen before we come here. And that's why it's so important always to look at that. If you want to understand your purpose, figure out first who you are, because then that explains it. So everything about us, like I say, is past life related. Our personality, our fears, our blocks, our talents. All talents are abilities that we've developed in previous lifetimes. And even though they could be learned in very different ways, it could be 1,000 years ago, it's going to look very different to today. But still, something like learning, developing a talent for logic would help you in 1,000 years later in being in IT or something. So, so far I've not been able to find anything about us or about we humans that isn't past life related. But as I say, I love to be challenged. But I find the oddest things, little quirks and idiosyncrasies, things we'd never normally think would be, past life related. It's not on most people's radar even. I think of somebody I just mentioned just a paragraph or two in my last book, talking to a client about her daughter, and I said, she used to be an orchestra conductor, and this kid's 6 years old, and they said, well, that explains why she wanted a conductor's baton for Christmas. And how many kids want one of those for Christmas? We have all these, tastes in food can be related to the past. I'm thinking about somebody I worked with years ago. She had choked in a past life. Now, in this life, she has kids, and she even cuts grapes into quarters because she's so paranoid about the kids choking. All these weird, eccentric things that we do will all have their roots somewhere in the past. And that's one of the things I love about working with people. I'll find a past life and I'll be telling somebody about it, and they'll go, oh my God, I can't believe you brought that up. I've always been terrified of this, or, had an issue with that particular breed of dog that bit me 500 years ago or something. Yeah, when you dig down into it, we are all products of our past lives. It's like, the classic thing when you're looking at an iceberg, you're just seeing that little bit on the top, but we have all this stuff behind us, thousands of years of experience, and all the challenges, and good lives, bad lives, and so on. But it all shows up in different ways now, and even as an older soul, this whole thing of we were talking about, of feeling more connected to one another. That's very much something we learn. We learn it over time. We come into this world and we're much more sort of isolated. And then just as the soul grows through its many incarnations, and you have one life here, one life there, they're radically different. But each one teaches you to see the humanity in others. And that's why old souls tend to be a lot more compassionate and accepting of others than younger souls who just lack that experience.
It's interesting because you opened up your latest book with saying your soul is on a journey with one overarching mission to truly understand all there is to know about being human. Why do you feel the soul is so fascinated by the human experience?
Well, this would happen wherever souls come in, any planet in the universe, and there are billions of planets and billions of species with souls like ours, and souls coming in to experience what it is to be on the physical plane. In our case, we're coming in to learn about the world, and by actually being human beings. And a lot of people who are on the more spiritual path tend to forget that this is what we're here to learn, to be human. And they feel that they have to maybe deny themselves physical pleasures or whatever, because that somehow it's some more spiritual thing. But we are here to learn about how our bodies work and what it is to interact with others and so on. It's and that's happening all over the universe all the time. And what it does is every little bit of growth that you get adds to the universal consciousness. It raises each lifetime. Each lifetime of experience raises the level of consciousness. Now, it could be in a fractionally small way. The way my spirit guides described it once is that that you come here, you learn what it is to be human. At the end, you go to the astral plane, and you do this over and over again until you've had enough experience. When you're done, all that you've learned is like it's added into the consciousness as you go back out into the universe. That's just pure consciousness. It's like adding a tiny little dropper full of red dye into the ocean, and you wouldn't see anything. It would just dissipate. It would just disappear in seconds. But when that's happening billions or trillions of times over and over throughout billions of years, then it is gradually going to turn the ocean red. And that's analogous to this rise in the consciousness of the universe. The universe, everything is going, there's forward motion, everything. It's all about growth, and we're all part of it.
What do you wish more people knew about?
I wish more people knew about karma, to really understand about karma. And I always stress that karma is not about punishment. Karma is just about balancing experiences. But I think we'd all be a lot kinder to each other if we understood the effects of karma as well. Because whatever you do in this life, when you process on the astral plane, your soul will, between lives, choose to balance out whatever it is you've done. I talked in my second book about President Truman, who chose to drop a nuclear bomb, well, 2 nuclear bombs on Japan. And regardless of what your reasons, it took a lot of lives, and he had a lot of choice over whether he did it or not. The more choice you have, the greater the karma, basically. If he could have chosen not to do that, he had the power. So, which is why I always thought it was ironic. He had on his desk, the buck stops here, and karmically it really does with him, because he was the one who made the ultimate decision. Now, in future lifetimes, I looked into 2 lifetimes that he's had since then. One was very, very short. And you have to remember that everybody has to have a soul. And when your soul is making a decision on the astral plane about where to come into on the planet, whose body to become a part of, it wants to become a part of, it's very pragmatic. It's only looking at, well, what do we need to balance out here? It's not thinking about all the time, oh, I have to protect myself or have a really cushy, easy life. It's just thinking, okay, what do I need to do now to balance the karma? So having taken a lot of lives like that, the first life that I looked at, he was a little girl in an area in Russia that it's been described, I think, as the most polluted place on the planet. It's extremely polluted through strontium-90. It's, I think, where they used to make atomic bombs. And like I say, everybody's got to have a soul, and his soul would have thought, well, this is a good place to learn the other side of the coin about what it means to be, a victim of nuclear power in this case, or nuclear waste. And the second life that I looked at is actually cleaning up Chernobyl. I think he's moved on from that, but that was, you could see the sort of connection with both of those lives, relating to the first. So I think if people had more awareness of how karma works, as I say, I think we'd be more kind to each other and, wanting to store up good karma for future lifetimes. And also just to create a better world, because, in this life, you might not be very concerned about politics, for example. As long as your 401k is doing okay and you got a job, yeah, who cares? But, a lot of people, they don't have that level of privilege. And it's another reason that we should all be concerned about having having greater opportunities, having greater equality, and so on, because we're all going to come back, and we don't know where we're going to end up. That decision will be made, once we're long gone, and there's a lot of dangerous places on the planet. But as I said, everybody's got to have a soul. So, I think if people were a bit more aware of this and the effect of reincarnation, and that they will be coming back, they would want to take greater care of the planet so it's in better condition for them in the future. And right now we got, they're rolling back, all the protections in the environment, and I mean, where the planet is really in major crisis. How different it would all be if we all felt more connected to the place, and we all did or focused much more on being good stewards and taking care of the place. Older souls tend to do that in part because they have embodied the awareness that we will all be coming back. So there's a little bit of maybe self-interest even there, as well as altruism.
Mm-hmm. How would you begin to dispel the myth that karma is some sort of like punishment?
Well, that is just it is a myth. One of the things that I did when I started doing this work is I just went back to try and get rid of any sort of myths that I had, and preconceived notions and so on. I just really discovered I was able to tap into the source. So I wouldn't just go with what I understood something like karma to be. I would ask spirit guides, I'd go back and, help me to really understand this. And the important thing about it is, like I say, it's about balance. But it's not being foisted on you. It's not being forced in any kind of way. There's not like some higher power punishing you. You did this, so now we're going to hurt you in this next life. You took a life, now you're going to get murdered. It doesn't work like that. Your soul makes all the decisions when it gets to the astral plane. I mean, it might get input from other spirit guides and so on, but you are the one who's making the decisions. If it was left to our conscious minds, we'd all be choosing to be billionaires and come into really comfortable lives and very nice, unpolluted parts of the world. But when you're on the astral plane and you're just thinking, well, I did this and now I need to see the other side of the coin. That's all it is. It's like, I want to see all facets of whatever it is, and no punishment and no one making you do it. It's all coming from yourself.
Hello, beautiful family. Quick one today. I just wanted to take a moment to thank each and every one of you that have subscribed to this channel. Your subscription means more than you know. Even though it's free, what you're doing is you're empowering a whole channel to be able to do this every single day and continue showing up in the way that we can with all of our resources on hand. Thank you for contributing to the growth of this channel, for sharing it with the people that you love, for creating a conscious movement of individuals that are seeking the sovereignty and the divinity of their soul. This is why we're here. And if you haven't already and you're enjoying this content, I invite you now to look below on that little button that says subscribe and welcome you properly to this community. Thank you for being here. Thank you for being who you are and being pure love and radiating that with everyone that you see. Back to the episode. You talk about different soul types, and I'm wondering that if, in your view, do you feel that there are certain soul types that are showing up more now in this transformation process that humanity is going through?
Yes, absolutely. It's all part of the rescue mission too. So many more souls are coming in choosing to be spiritualists or spiritual soul types. These are people who come here to initiate change, to do something. They always want to do something in this life that benefits others, or almost always, depending on some other factors. But in the main, spiritual soul types have learned to be who they are through past lives, usually as contemplatives of some kind, lives in a monastery or whatever. It gives them an opportunity to connect with the other side, or lives as a healer, surgeons, acupuncturists, herbalists, whatever. So what it does, all those, the cumulative effect of all those lives is to make spiritualist soul types more concerned about doing the right thing. It gives them a strong sense of ethics, and but things like wanting to have meaningful work. And there's a lot more leader influences coming in as well now. People wanting to take a little bit more charge over their lives and get more motivated to initiate change. A lot of old souls, when you've been around the block a lot, you're really old soul, the drive can drop off. It's hard. I mean, it's like you can get young souls out, demonstrating in the streets, and old souls going, yeah, I'd love to go out and demonstrate, but I've got to wash my hair or something. It's just like, it all seems like too much effort right now. So a lot of old souls are choosing to have a leader or hunter influence in them, which gives them a lot more drive. I joke with clients all the time. It's like Viagra for the soul. You've got that old soul malaise. It all seems like a hell of an effort, and this gets the energy going to make a difference. Would you be interested in hearing about your soul's personality and what you've chosen?
For sure. I would love to open that up and get the community to understand me a little bit better, and also for me.
Yeah. Well, the first thing is that I'd always do in a session with somebody is look at how old their soul is, because that helps me to really understand what they're working on, what they're, really shows us the perspective that you have, or how you see the world. There are 10 levels that every soul goes through. There can be multiple lives at each one. And the journey takes the soul roughly something like 5, 6, 7,000 years to get through. It just really depends on whether you're a quick learner or if you live a long time and multiple lives. Some lot of short ones. We're all different, but roughly that's how long it takes to get through something like approximately 110, 120 lifetimes, which would be pretty much average. Most people would do that, although it's a little hard to calculate exactly how many lifetimes you've had, because generally you wouldn't choose lives that didn't go anywhere. Like there's so much infant mortality in the past, you wouldn't choose all those, otherwise you probably have 400 lives, not 110. So you have these 10 levels that you go through over these few thousand years, and with multiple lifetimes at each. And they have a different focus. You start off as a very young soul, just learning, what it's like to be in a human body, and just getting used to the place and learning to maybe be of service, learning to take care of children, or those sort of important life lessons. You're way up at the other end. I mean, you're getting right towards the end of the journey. You're, technically speaking, you're what they call level 9, and you're 90% into it. This is meant to be a busy life. It's meant to be where you get a lot of growth, and particularly intellectual growth. That's a really big thing for your soul, but it's more in your soul types. I'll talk about that in a minute. But travel is a typical marker of somebody at your soul age. You're wrapping up from this whole level. And so if you have the opportunity to travel, your soul will definitely push you to take it, to experience different cultures. I know, enough about you that you certainly have that going on. But you are very intellectually centered, so you're going to have a huge thirst for knowledge as well. The marker of being a level 9 soul, what really unites all of level 9 souls, is wanting to make a difference in the world, wanting to feel like you're part of the solution, not the problem, if you like. You want to have a higher purpose as well. It's never enough for a soul of your age to just work in a shop, selling candy, across the counter. It's kind of like, yeah, it's fine, but there's not a lot of growth in there. You'd have learned everything about the job in the first week, So that's fine for certain types. It wouldn't suit you. You need to feel like you're growing and learning and moving forward all the time, because of it, just based on your soul age alone. Your soul types are kind of interesting, and you are, technically speaking, let me see, I wrote this down, I just want to make sure I get this right. You're a spiritualist soul type. Almost everybody I talk to is. My clientele is almost exclusively made up of spiritualist soul types, because of the person most likely to be interested at all in this way of understanding, and what I do, and of course the personal growth as well. You have a creator influence, primary creator influence. Now, what this does is it imbues you with a great deal of sensitivity. You're going to feel things very, very, very deeply for reasons that I'll explain later. You may not obviously show that. Sometimes you could, that swan analogy, where you're sailing gracefully on the top of the water, but you're paddling like heck underneath. It can be that sort of thing going on. Yeah. But super sensitive, deep feeling, and part of the purpose of choosing this very prominently is to learn to develop your intuition in this life. And the goal is to make this so that you get to a point where it's not like your intuition takes over from the intellect, but it will be equal to it. Decisions you make will be both intuitive and intellectually decided. Next element that shows up as a performer, there is a past life fear around rejection, which will have a tendency to make you feel like a little bit of an outsider, like you don't fully fit in, especially being an older soul in a younger soul world. This performer helps to get over the tendency that people have with this fear to isolate or internalize everything. It just pushes you a little bit more out into the world. And of course, it's perfect for what you're doing here right now. It doesn't mean that you're going to be, a lot of people think of the, performer as all singing, all dancing. Excuse me. But you can be an introvert and a performer as well. But it should help to, even with things like being comfortable in front of a microphone or camera. And the creator and performer, very much, they're very compatible. It's about expression, and both are very, very sensitive. Past lives, as a creator, they would have been lives as an artist or anything creative, and performer, singer, dancer, actor, presenter, salesperson, often dealing with the public as well. It gives you good people skills. Next element that shows up, actually next two elements, I'll just talk about them together. You have the thinker and the educator. The thinker is the part of you that you would have learned through lives as an academic or explorer, intellectual. And the educator, just as it sounds, lifetimes as a teacher. When you get the two together, there's, especially at your soul age, there's a specific reason for it. And that is to make sure that you get an education beyond high school level. You should, I'd expect anyway, that you would have a degree with this. And a lot of people, because it makes education fun, they end up having a degree, a master's, 3 degrees, a PhD, and if they don't follow that path, the academic path, then they're interested in, they'll read a lot, they're growing all the time, they're just learning podcasts, any kind of training, just you got to be learning all the time. You have to be growing. I mean, you are intellectually centered with this. And you have to keep evolving. You feel like you're on a trajectory. Your life path has to be going up like that, never flatlining. That actually will, if you're doing the same thing over and over, it will alarm your soul. That thinker part of your soul will get kind of like freaked out by it, because it will go, oh my God, we're here in this life to get maximum growth, and now we're flatlining. Oh my gosh, it can trigger past life fears around failure. What if we don't get everything done? What if there's not enough time? And there is one other element that shows up, and it's you actually have a leader influence in your soul types. And that just gives you an air of authority. It also gives you that little bit more energy to get things done, a little bit more drive. That's the Viagra for the soul I was talking about. So I do have well, first of all, is all making sense?
Definitely making a lot of sense, and even just curious to bring that in terms of knowing how that information drops in for you. I know you've done thousands of readings for people, but I'm really curious to understand how that information starts to drop in when you're about to do a reading or sensing into a person's soul types.
Yeah. Well, what I do is before every session, and I do it all by phone or Zoom, and I just I bring in my spirit guides. I mean, just over years, I've got a good relationship with them. It's been 25 years since I started working with spirit guides, and so I do a little incantation and just make sure I'm protected and acting in the highest interest of myself and my client, making sure that everything is, that I'm free of any kind of interference or whatever, and all the information is coming from the highest possible source for the highest possible good. So I do a little bit of preparation. And then how I communicate with my guides, it's morphed and changed a little bit over the years. It's mostly what they call clairaudience. To me, it's not like a voice in the ear. I don't hear it so much as sense it. I've never been able to adequately express what it feels like. I worked or went to see a psychic about 10 years before I started doing this work, and he was an old guy in the south of England he literally had a voice in his ear. He's kind of looking around and going, okay, I'll pass that on. I don't get anything quite that clear, but it's a knowing, and sentences come to me. So what I always do with actually before I work with somebody for the first time, I'll always do kind of what I'm doing with you. Is like I'll get a past life and a heads up about who this person is. It just helps me to know what some of the bigger issues are going to be. I've always found that really fascinating, because I'll get a past life and I'll be, before the person calls, I'm kind of going, well, I can't think how the hell this is going to relate to somebody's life. And then, they start talking, they realize, oh, yeah, I see why we're talking about this one, why the spirit guides would choose out of many lifetimes this one to talk about. But it's a weird thing, and just to, I sometimes even get just images that will come. I dabbled in the early days, my spirit guides, me practicing, trying different things, and there was a period that was more sort of clairvoyant, and I was getting more pictures, but some of them were sort of metaphorical, and I was having my brain just doesn't work that way. I was going, what the heck, I have no idea what this means. So spirit guides were going, yeah, it's probably not the best way to communicate. Kind of interesting that I've always thought this would, they don't have all the answers, and they didn't know what was going to actually work best. We had to sort of do a little trial and error to find out how it worked. But last 10 years at least, it's very sort of set. It's just, I just, get this information. Like I say, it's mostly whole sentences, and but I also have code words and code phrases with my spirit guides, which will speed things up. So they could give me just one word, and because it's a common issue that people have, I know exactly what they're talking about, so I don't have to patiently wait for them to download 10,000 words. Simple things like if they bring up beauty, for example, then that just sounds like, well, that could be anything. What they mean by that is that you have a past life somewhere where you've been denied natural beauty or color or creativity or whatever. Usually it's imprisonment or enslavement. Imagine your slave being put down a mine. You're having there's no natural beauty. You're living in darkness, and your soul is going to crave things like plants, trees, flowers, art, color, and that sort of thing in this life to make up for it. So that's part of that sort of karmic type of balancing thing that you do.
It's interesting because you said the phrase old souls living in a young soul world. So I'm really curious to know what you meant there in that sense.
Yeah. So, I was talking about how there are 10 levels that your soul goes through, multiple lifetimes at each of these levels. We go through the first 5 as a young soul, and we learn different things. Their young souls are just learning about, creating communities that function. They like their laws to be strict, so they know where they are. They like their gods to be strong and masculine because it makes them feel powerful and taken care of, and so on. And you get to the end of level 5, you become an old soul, and your perspective shifts. The big shift there is all to do with introspection. It's like after that point, something it's almost like a 180-degree shift. You go from this very outward focus to more inward. And then old souls, they go through, 5 levels. They have a particular focus. I talked about level 9. Level 7 would be a good example. Most people at that level are doing something creative. usually innovative. I mean, it could be a scientist doing research or something, but always trying to kind of create new discoveries or do things a little differently. You know, if that person happened to be an artist, they wouldn't be copying anybody. They might be influenced, but they would be very much, they would have their own unique style, for example. It's an innovation is a word that is used around that. So we live in a world, it's not like there's the predominance of young souls, but young soul values are very much in the mainstream because of who runs the place. Younger souls have much more energy, and they are much more ambitious and much more self-interested. So what we have, I mean, I think the States right now is a really good example of this. I mean, we've got an administration that is, they're very, very young souls. And they're, I mean, really, I don't think there's anybody in the current administration who's doing anything that's, no matter what you're told or what propaganda you believe, I don't think there's anybody there who's altruistic, who's doing anything to benefit anyone else. These are, it's not to say that young souls are all narcissists or sociopaths or whatever. It just happens to be that when you get a narcissist, sociopath in charge of things, they do tend to surround themselves with like-minded people. And so we've got, like, not just young souls running the place with their values, which are never going to be the same as old souls. But we do have these are people who are narcissists and sociopaths. It's not a healthy or very safe thing for anybody, as you can tell. You know, if you're an immigrant or a refugee or a transgender person, this is not a safe place to be right now. It's actually one of the things the young souls always need. They need an enemy. They need somebody to focus the attention on. It's like, you know, the transgender people are the new Jews, who are the new blacks, who are the new Irish, or whatever. You know, it's just these young souls always have to have a minority that they can focus. You know, the problem is always them. It's not, you know, it's not us. It's not like I say that we have that the world is mostly made up of young souls, but the people who run the media, people who are drawn to governing, and not just in the States but all over the world, they tend to be younger souls. So their values tend to be predominant. You know, like recently, Elon Musk said that he saw the biggest problem with civilization or Western civilization being empathy. And, you know, it's all that attack on woke. You know, what he's talking about with empathy is the goal. It's what we should all be trying to achieve. It's love, empathy, connection, compassion. This is what this is what the whole journey is about. And it's a higher core value. It's a path. It's a goal. This is what we should all be striving to achieve. And it is far from being the greatest problem. The greatest problem we've got is the lack of empathy in people who have the power. And, you know, that's why there's so much cruelty and war and so on. Too many young souls with too much power and this, you know, disregard or lack of appreciation for the empathy and compassion that older souls have. Very difficult time to be an old soul, obviously, on this planet, but very important not to give up. And, you know, people criticize me sometimes for talking about politics, like as if somehow, you know, you're doing spiritual work and therefore you should not be interested. And it actually drives me nuts because, you know, politics and spirituality are totally entwined. And if you think they're not, then that is a sign of entitlement. It's like saying, well, it doesn't affect me, so, you know, I don't care. And we should all, particularly as old souls, we should be getting out there talking about the, higher values, standing up for peace, truth, love, understanding, and so on, and countering this young soul, self-interest and greed.
In what way do you see a world created where old soul groups and young soul groups can accept, see, and love each other in a new way?
Well, it may take a while, but and it's going to be a challenge because of so much disinformation out there, and this sort of abuse of social media, if you like. But this shift in consciousness, the transformation, is something that will raise all boats. So this rising tide, it will look different. I mean, and it will take younger souls a while to totally to get on board. One of the things that I get a lot from talking to the spirit world is about modeling, about the importance of old souls modeling what it is to be an old soul. Model those values. You're not going to get anywhere by trying to convince a young soul, of your point of view, or maybe limited success. But, beliefs get very, very carved in stone. People, cling onto them like a drowning person clinging onto a life raft. And it's very hard for them to let go once they've decided this is the way the world is. It's very hard to shift them. But over time, if more and more old souls are demonstrating what it is to be an old soul, to teach the importance, just to, allowing young souls to even just observe, how it is, when we work together for greater equality, we develop understanding of different cultures and so on. That's a really important thing. That's a big part of every soul's journey. It's part of what you get through reincarnation and being in different parts of the world is you develop an understanding. I mean, that over time you learn it. Person of a different religion, different culture is no different fundamentally from you. So yeah, modeling old soul values is an important thing to do. It also reminds me. I mean, there's something my spirit guides have said forever, is that the world was never meant to be the way it is. It was meant to be. It's become corrupted, and it was always meant to be a place where there was greater equality and cooperation. That was one of the fundamental goals that we learn as souls when we come into the world. It's a very young soul. You come in, you learn to work better with others, and that learn that you're not here alone. So learning about reciprocity and so on, that's like a fundamental lesson. But a lot of these things, they get lost. I mean, they get lost or confused or whatever. And religion plays a part in it. Superstitions play a part in it. Greed, and that's probably one of the biggest problems, And so the world was meant to be a place that was fairer, where we shared the commons, shared the resources much better than we do, and certainly would, we should be taking care of the planet because it's the only one we got. And as my spirit guides say, the issues with the environment, global warming, all of that sort of thing, should be leading the news every night. That should be what we're all focused on. And clearly, we're actually rolling back environmental regulations and that sort of thing. And it's just like, oh, this is so corrupt. It's just, this is not how it's meant to be.
What do you feel created those distortions from the original blueprint in the first place?
It's interesting. There's not just one thing. It started It's interesting that we're talking to the spirit guides about the past. They talk about these tribal lives that we had thousands of years ago. In the main, they weren't as violent and brutal as we might think they would have been. Generally, everybody had a purpose in the tribe. And this is where soul types come in. That the whole place works very well when you've got helper soul types taking care of cooking, skinning the carcass, whatever it is. You've got the hunters going out and hunting. You've got the creators making jewelry and clothing and keeping the place nice and colorful. The caregivers taking care of the children or the animals. Leaders, deciding whether you should plant crops now or wait or whatever. And the spiritualist taking care of the spiritual kind of side of things. Everybody had their purpose, and that's a big thing that's lost when we started building cities, and it's not recognizing our unique individuality, and also not recognizing that we all play our part in making the world what it is. We live in a world where leaders or performers, the celebrities, they get paid so well, and a lot of people will look down on the helpers and the caregivers. The essential workers, they were calling them during COVID, and they are essential. We couldn't function without people. We all have equal value, and unfortunately, somewhere along the line, we've created this idea of like a hierarchy, and it's spiritually kind of incorrect, if you like. It's not. And if we had a world where we really understood people's strengths and weaknesses based on what they're bringing into the world, oh my God, how different it would be. So many artists, for example, struggle to make a living. Art is disrespected in schools. When I grew up, it was like, it was practically like a remedial class. I mean, I was an artist, and so that's all I wanted to do. But I was forced to do math and stuff that I couldn't get my head around. It was not how I was built at all. But it was like, if you were a smart kid, you weren't told to go away and do more art. You were told, well, here's some more science or English or math or something, because that was far more respected. And I think if we knew more about soul types, and that we do come in with these complete personalities, I think it would make a big difference to the educational system. Because, I mean, I know there's values in us all having, broad understanding, but there's absolutely little to no point of taking somebody like me and teaching me trigonometry, But there's other people who would be, they would have an aptitude. They've come in, thinker educator maybe. They're more built that way. There's other kids, oh my God, hunter kids in schools. They, hunters and leader kids, I feel so sorry for them. The ones who are restless, they're moving around in their chair. These kids are meant to be, physical and out there doing stuff, and they're forced to sit in a classroom for hours. It's really, it's not to beat up on the educational system, but honestly, it's got a long way to go. And I think it would all begin, going back to where we lost really who we are when we lost our understanding of our unique individuality and how different we all are, and how it creates smooth running, functioning societies. And maybe we'll get back to that sometime in the future.
Yeah, it's interesting because in the beginning of the conversation, I asked you if you saw that there was a certain soul type that was coming in a little bit more predominantly right now at this time. And you said the spiritualist with influences of a leader.
Yeah.
So I'm really curious there, because we just said that some younger souls are in positions of power and leadership in the world right now. Do you feel like with this new soul type that is becoming more prominent, a spiritualist matched with the leader, would that begin to start changing the power systems that we're seeing in the world if these people go into leadership?
That is a big part of it. Absolutely. I haven't looked at, the soul types of female politicians yet. I mean, I will do at some point, but I would imagine probably most of the ones, at least the ones who are sort of, more progressive, are going to have that combination. They're perfectly, that combination. It's this weird, I'll tell you, it's a really weird thing that's happened just recently. And it happened just like a couple of hours ago. This spiritualist and leader combination, which is a sort of quasi-transformer, so it implies that somebody's come here to create unity and change. I used to get this even up until the end of last year. If I saw somebody with that combination, there's a few other things as well, but if I saw somebody with this combination, I would usually say, well, I don't see this every day, or it's been a few weeks since I've seen it. Since January this year, it's been ridiculous. I've seen it so many times. I mean, almost every day. And I even said to somebody back about 2 months ago, I just made a joke about, I'm seeing this so often now. Makes sense to just get everybody into a room and I'll just do one session, save a lot of time and money. I mean, of course, not really, because I would be looking a lot more than that. But and I just have kept on seeing it. We're now in mid-April, towards the end of April, and so since January, I've been seeing this practically every day, which is really encouraging. I keep saying I don't know exactly why. I think probably, this is just spirit guides working in mysterious ways. I always say, they'll bring certain. I'll get themes in my work. I'll have 3 people I work with in a day that are all going through divorce or something. So I think as spirit guides kind of having fun on the other side, we'll bring him a bunch of spiritualists with a leader influence and see what he does with it. But it's very encouraging because we need older souls to get more involved and to, be able to stand up for those really important values. And, truth, for example. I mean, since, we started talking about us living in a post-truth world and, politicians who just lie their heads off the whole time. I mean, it's just like, oh my God, old souls are so programmed to focus on the truth. Honesty is super important for old souls. Justice, fairness, all of these higher core values are really something that we need to be standing up and talking about. And, not letting people get away with, disparaging compassion, by using words like woke or like telling you that empathy's, bringing about the downfall of Western society. We need to, as old souls, stand up for our values and say, no, it's not the way it is. This is important and how we should be. And we're all meant to be on this journey towards love and getting to this place of greater compassion and a sense of, understanding each other.
I had a bit of an interesting question for you, and that is, if I put you in a room of 100 people, you would be the only one who ...
All right. Well, that's what you're referencing is the box that I have throughout my book, where I take those idiosyncrasies that old souls have and say, if I put 100 people in a room, you would be the only person who, I don't know, was it somebody yesterday? Oh God, I hope it'll come back to me. It was something. It was totally related to a past life, but it was all about clothing. Oh gosh, I'm sorry. I'm not going to. Memory is too. I talked to too many people. I can't remember all the details. If I was to put myself in a room with 100 people, I would be. It's a weird one, but I might be the only one who went nude bowling in rural Georgia. Now, I have a mission of exploration, and I moved around the
in this life?
In this life, yeah. So I've moved around the planet a lot. So, I grew up in Scotland, moved to London, moved to New York, moved to Georgia. I lived in Atlanta for a while, and then the West Coast. And while I was in Georgia, my ex-wife decided that we were. It was going to help with her body image issue that we were going to become nudists, and my joke always has been that I'm Scottish. I was born fully clothed. I don't do that sort of thing. And but anyway, she was forceful, and we ended up going to a nudist resort at weekends for about a year, and it was good for me because it got over my sort of. My Scottish shyness about revealing my body, and it was a lot of fun in a lot of ways. But yeah, they had this bowling tournament, and so I ended up nude bowling with 200 other naked bowlers in rural.
I'm adding that to my bucket list as we speak.
It's what my feeling was. And I said this. When people use the phrase, "Well, I think I've seen it all," I go, "No, wait a minute. I've been nude bowling in Georgia. I've definitely seen it all."
Yeah, after this call, you'll send me the hotel and the place. Just so I can cross some things off the bucket list.
There you go. That's the mission of exploration which you and I both have. We want to get a lot of experience. When you're presented with an opportunity, you have to take it. You have to find out. You got to know. Well, what's that going to be like? And it is like checking things off the bucket list. For people with a mission of exploration, which you and I both have, one of the biggest fears the soul will have is that you get to the end of this life and you haven't done all things that you wanted to do, or you had the opportunity to do. And it's never the things that you did that you'll regret doing, even if they don't work out. It's the things you didn't do, those opportunities you didn't take, because then you'll never know. Wow, gosh, what would have happened if I'd taken that opportunity?
Yeah. Is it possible for a soul to forget its mission entirely in a life?
Totally. That's actually a big part of what I do. I help people remember what it is they've chosen to do. We're not all here for some huge purpose. There's a bit of a myth that there's some kind of holy grail, this one really big thing we're looking for, like this mysterious thing. We just can't imagine what it is. For most people, we're here to do a lot of different things and, have various or varied experiences. So a lot of the times we forget, and the reason we forget is that the moment we come into this world, people try to change us, whether they're doing it malevolently or not. Sometimes it's people with your highest interests at heart, the parents who really love you, want the best for you, but we get taken off our path. I mean, a big part of it is, I think, people coming into this life. You'll have kids talking about things they want to do, and they get shut down. Talk about spiritual stuff, even if I've clients whose kids have referenced past lives, and often when kids do that, they get told, don't talk about that. There's something wrong about it, and we shut down who we are. We get influenced by the culture, by the people around us, teachers, parents particularly, and so we get pushed into doing things that we didn't come here to do. I mean, a typical one that I would see is someone who's a doctor. I work for some reason with a lot of physicians, well, the main reason is that they're late level 9 spiritualists like you, and they're looking for a way to make a difference in the world. But I do talk to these doctors who were never meant to be doctors, that they were the smart kid at school who got told by a teacher, hey, you're smart, you could be a doctor. That they came here to be something completely different. And that's why you often get people going through a midlife crisis around the age of 40. The soul pushes through around 35, usually mid-30s to late 30s. That's the point where the soul is going, I've got to really be me. And if you're not on the track, then this is where you often have that big midlife crisis. You find that the person you married out of college isn't really what you wanted, and the job, particularly I'll get people coming to me around the age of 40 in the corporate world, and they're going nuts. And what we have to do is find out, well, what were you really here to do? I don't think many souls, will come into this world with the intention of just working in a dull, boring corporate job. Usually souls come in with a higher purpose, and we need to find out what that is. At least old souls I'm talking about here. Accountancy is another one. Creative people, they come into this world, and sometimes I'm not typical. I'm a creator, but I'm terrible with numbers. But sometimes creators are very good with numbers, and so they end up, and especially if they've got security issues, fear of loss or something, they train as accountants, because that way I'll always have a good steady job. And then they hit 40 and are going, this is not working for me anymore. So you get these people making big changes. I help people to figure out what they're here to do. They look at any past life blocks, look at the personality they've chosen, and what is the soul looking for right now, and help to put people in the right direction. Most of the time, I'll tell somebody, you're actually meant to be a psychotherapist or something like that. And they don't go, oh my God, that's weird. They go, oh, I've been looking into it. Or I'd always wanted to do that, but my parents wanted me to do this. Or some kind of variation on that kind of theme. Most of the time, I'm not having to drag somebody from being an underwater juggler to being an acupuncturist. They've already thought about it. They've looked into it. Maybe they didn't have the confidence, so they didn't have the certainty that it was the right path. And that's actually a big part of what I do. An interesting thing, we were talking about how so many people I'm talking to these days have that leader influence in them. The problem with having a leader influence is that if that part of your soul is not sure about the path forward, it tends to lie dormant, like a dormant volcano. Because that part of you can put all this incredible energy into making things happen. But if that part of the soul doesn't totally know, is this the right thing to do or not? It doesn't want to put 5 or 10 years into doing something and then go, oh, crap, this is the wrong thing. And then we have to retrace our steps and start again. So sometimes it will just sit back and wait until it gets some validation. And so for a lot of people that I work with, the validation comes from hearing from the spirit guides in the session that this is what they're meant to be doing. Happens all the time, where people go, oh my God, I always wanted to do that. Or I had been thinking about it, or I've been researching this online. So often those memories are just beneath the surface, but they need to be brought out. And then when you can do something like that, the leader goes, oh, all right, it's showtime, I'm on. Now I need to get involved. But sometimes it just needs to hear it from that other source.
And you have me thinking, because when I look at the jobs of the future, 99% of them have not been created yet, because the world is changing so rapidly.
Yeah.
Like if you said 15 years ago, I'm going to be a podcaster, that term did not exist. So what's interesting is like, what would you advise for, the new souls that are coming in? Not new, I think I want to correct myself there. The souls that are coming in that don't necessarily know what are going to be those roles and jobs of the future, but they still have this inclination of what they want to create and do here.
Well, what I would say to them is go back and discover your soul types, and then figure out how that plays into today's technology or tomorrow's technology. Because obviously, you didn't learn to be a podcaster in a past life. That wasn't around then. But what you would have learned is a talent for communication. You would have learned to develop the performer in you because you got it in you in this life. And those things that you would require when it comes to doing something like you're doing now. So technology can change, but your soul types don't. There's just different ways of expressing them. And in anything you do in this life, you want to make sure as many parts of you are being used, being fulfilled. So for you, it's really important that you've got some creativity because of the creator in there, the performer, and where you want to connect with people. You've got the thinker and educator in there, so you want to impart knowledge, and you want to actually grow. The thinker part of you wants to grow with what you're doing. So, I would have thought you would be a perfect representation of somebody who's really, you're living the life your soul intended. But this is not the only way you could do it. There could be other paths to making that happen. The other thing is that's really interesting is, and I found this with almost every podcaster that I've talked to, almost every single one is working through a fear of rejection, past life fear of rejection, which comes from being abandoned or dying alone in a past life. And they are building community. This is a way of healing themselves and helping people who suffer in a similar way. Creating community is a really big part of what you're doing here.
Is that what you saw in the past life that you tuned into?
Oh, yeah. Let me have a look at your past life. Let me tell you about this past life. So this life was in Egypt. You were male. You were a cleric, some kind of religious job that you had. You spent your life investigating religion, and you're very interested in esoteric beliefs, not just whatever religion you were part of, but there was a curiosity. You were going back into old texts. This is a thinker-educator kind of thing, where that's one of the benefits of, and your soul types change with every life, but, you're probably going to have a thinker-educator in a lot of them. And it gives you the ability to focus on detail. Usually, anyway, it should make you good at reading a contract or focusing on reading. Particularly is a thing you associated with thinker educators, and you were a big reader in that life. You went into these old texts. The problem was, you got caught up in your head, and you didn't really participate in life. You weren't interacting with other people. You were way too intellectually focused. So the soul sees mind, body, and spirit as one bundle. Can't separate them out. That's why if you get a physical ailment, it can affect you emotionally or spiritually. Or if you have a spiritual malaise, it can affect you physically. The soul can't separate out those three parts. But you only had one part really operating there. You're not using the body, and you're not really actually getting much into the spiritual area, even though that sort of looked like part of the job. You were much more just concerned with it was just intellectual, and so you missed out on so much in life. Literally, as the spirit guy said, you didn't participate in life, so much so that you never had a relationship, and you died at the age of 40, a virgin, and that. Dying prematurely, and especially not having these experiences of life, they show up in this life as you wanting to learn all the time. You want to continually grow. But I also think there's a lesson here about discernment. You got a little bit, caught up in just learning one thing. And I think, as you move forward, all that you are learning through what you're bringing to the world and helping other people to learn, you're going to start focusing on things that are a little bit more, feel a little more authentic to you. You're certainly going to be coming across stuff, teachings, understandings in this life that are really, worth their weight in gold. But you're also going to come across a lot of stuff that's a little maybe kind of wacky or kind of not really authentic. And part of what you're learning is discernment here. And you certainly want to be experiencing all facets of life. You want to be developing the intellect, the intuition, and that spiritual side of you, and staying healthy in the body as well, making sure you work out, run, or whatever you do, or yoga, or whatever works for you. But you need to have a physical outlet. That's actually one of the things about having a leader in your soul types as well. You need to, some kind of physicality. Leaders love hiking. It's such a common thing I see, that you get to be in nature, and you also have a physical. There's a reason for doing it, and so how is that sounding? Making sense of what you know about yourself?
I think the nude bowling is going to help me with the virgin wound that I had from that life, for sure.
Absolutely, we need to send everybody nude bowling, and it's like it's a great equalizer. Yeah.
What would we do differently if we remembered our past lives?
Oh, I think if we remembered them, we'd see the patterns. That's what I see all the time. So educators have lifetimes as teachers. Actually, interesting. I don't know why I pulled that example. I hardly ever talk to educators or full-blown educators. They just like helper soul types. They don't come to me. But I see all the rest, and as I said, spiritualists, would be the main thing. I'm so sorry. What was the question again? I was going off at the tangent.
What would we do differently if we remembered our past lives?
Yeah, if we remembered and we saw these patterns, you'll see with, let's say a better example would be a spiritualist soul type. I'll look back at their lives, and they're healers of different kinds. I mentioned before, sometimes contemplative. So you'll sometimes see like a life in a monastery, followed by a life as a physician or something. So creator soul types, I'll find they've been artists, they've been furniture makers, they've been jewelry designers, creative stuff in a lot of past lives. And I think it doesn't mean that just because you've done these things in past lives that you need to do it in this life. But there are themes, and I think if we had more of a memory of our past, we would see then what's appropriate for us now. And understand why we're drawn to certain activities. Something I do this as an exercise sometimes at live events, and I get people to look at their heroes and. Who are your heroes? I mean, not just the obvious ones, Oprah, Martin Luther King Jr., and Gandhi, which come up a lot, but who do you admire, and who do you think, I'd like to be doing what they're doing? Come up with 10 of those. And I found that that's often where you get a theme coming up, that you can see that, this is something that fascinates your soul. When somebody says, they give you a list of the people they see as heroes, and they're all healers, or they're all motivational speakers, or it could be anything. And what you want to do is then, if these are your heroes, then how do you fit in? In fact, one thing you can do is not look at 10 heroes, but look at 9 of them, and then fit yourself into the 10th spot. But that often tells us a lot. Who do we admire? Who are we interested in? Whose biographies would we be really most fascinated by reading on Wikipedia? That, by the way, is actually a useful exercise too. If you want to write your Wikipedia entry, how would you like the world to see you? Think about your Wikipedia entry from about 5 years from now. Just the top part, the overview. What would you like people to know about you? And that really helps you to focus on, well, what am I really here to do? What would I like to be able to say that I've done?
Who are your top 3 heroes?
Oh my goodness. Well, they've changed a lot. When I was an illustrator for years, I was a cartoon illustrator, and my heroes were all cartoonists. They were Robert Crumb and a couple of others that most people would not have heard of. And I was obsessed with that. As well as being a psychic, I'm also a musician and an artist. And I started oil painting. It's about 5 years ago. I had open heart surgery, and I had to have a valve replaced, or repaired rather, and a lot of recovery time. So I thought, well, what will I do with this time? I won't be able to work for a while. So I took up oil painting, which I hadn't done since my first year at art school. So it had been like 45 years or something ridiculous. And I started painting. And all of my heroes suddenly became painters. Edward Manet, the Impressionist, was one of them. And I was actually able to tap into him, getting help from his soul on the other side to do what I do. I mean, I've got a few different influences, but right now, painters are the big ones. When I started doing the psychic work, I had 2 major heroes in that area, but nobody would know them. They were, well, one was the psychic in England they were both in England, and one was the one who had the voice in his ear, and the other one was a lovely old woman I used to go and see in London. I was interested in psychics long before I started doing this work, and I kept hearing from them. They kept telling me, you're meant to be a psychic and meant to be doing it. And I was going, I wouldn't be paying you if I was psychic. Didn't think I had any ability. It was years till probably a good decade before I started doing it for myself. But these were heroes. I mean, I really was. I was so bowled over by what they could do. I was so in awe of people who did that. And to discover that I could do it was super thrilling for that reason. Oh my God, this is, of course it spoke volumes. I didn't even understand when I started doing it. Those were my heroes, and that's where my soul was trying to put me into that box along with them.
I love that. Yeah. I love that. And, Ainsley, we end every show with a segment called The Final Trio. And these are personalized questions to the guests, although the last one we ask at the end of every show. But there's just been one question on my mind before we get to that segment that I feel would really encapsulate all that you've learned through your spirit guides and this work in specific, that I would love to ask you. And that is, what is in your eyes your greatest understanding of the soul?
I think there is something, there's something important. I don't know if exactly answering the question, but something that my spirit guide said years ago, and it's something I've quoted them a lot on, and I think it's such an important thing, that they say that the experience is not the lesson. They're talking about whatever you go through. Like, let's say it's a traumatic experience or a good one. It could be anything. But they say the experience is not the lesson. The lesson is what you draw from the experience. And there's always a positive lesson, no matter how harsh the experience. I think it's one of the most profound things that I've heard from them.
Wow. That's very powerful. And I would encourage people to write down those 2 sentences that you just said and keep that in whatever journal, background on their iPhone, whatever it is. But that's very powerful. Thank you for saying that. And just like I was mentioning, we end every show with that segment of the final 3 questions that are meant to really be questions that are answers that people can really just integrate and all the wisdom that we've talked about in this episode. And before that, where would you send people to connect with you? All this beautiful collection of work and teachings that you've been putting together for the past 3 decades or more at this point. Where would you send people to do that?
I would send people to soulworld.com or ainsliemacleod.com. And
beautiful.
Soul World will show you all the different things that I do, places to connect, courses, that kind of thing.
Yeah, we'll include everything in the show notes where they can find you.
Wonderful.
Soul World, everything will be in the links in the description. For the first 2 questions of the final trio, they're personalized to the guests, and the last one we ask at the end. The first one, what do you believe is the most important soul mission that old souls, especially those incarnated right now, are here to fulfill together?
I think the word that comes up really is kindness. It's about being kind to one another and yourself. I've said this a lot, but it's been a mystery since I was a kid, why people are so unkind to each other. Like, I came in, I think, innately understanding reciprocity and couldn't understand why people could be so unkind to others. I mean, not to say I haven't had my moments as a jerk or, been more inadvertently unkind, but kindness, I really think, is the key. I think it was the Dalai Lama who said his religion was kindness, and I thought, yeah. I mean, I don't think of myself as a religious person, but if I had one, it would be kindness.
Beautiful. What do you believe is the most underrated spiritual practice on earth?
Meditation. You cannot overemphasize the importance of meditation. And I was fortunate that I learned to meditate when I was about 30. I was super wired. I mean, I was, nervy, edgy kind of person. And I learned to meditate, and it changed my life. I mean, it was radical. And I don't think I would have even been chosen for this work by the spirit world if that hadn't been a part of what I was doing. So it was a regular part of my life, and it allowed me to go into that different mind space to be able to communicate with my spirit guides, and it really helped me to get started on the path.
Yeah, and we just have to show up and give space for the inner world as much as we do for the outer world.
Absolutely.
This last question really is about legacy and what we're here to leave behind for the future generations. In that way, we call it the time capsule question, and it requires us to travel a little bit out into the future, around 15 to 20 years down the line. And the reason I chose out those time frames is I believe that's a time in history where the young generations of today will be stepping more into leadership positions around the world.
Yes.
And just like any great leader that came before us, they've had great mentors, great access to knowledge, to wisdom, to resources, just things that filled them to build them into the best leaders that they were. So you were given the opportunity to leave behind a time capsule for these future leaders. And inside of the time capsule, you could leave behind anything beyond your wildest imagination that you feel would really equip them with everything that they would need to be the best leaders for what we would call the new earth, the golden age, whatever we want to call this new optimistic model of reality, what would you leave behind? It doesn't necessarily have to be something physical. It can be something non-physical, even maybe just a teaching, a phrase, a word, a book, perhaps. Whatever comes to mind, what would you leave behind?
The thing that comes to mind is I would leave a guided regression, past life regression, to help these leaders go back into previous lifetimes and discover lives of leadership and get rid of any blocks that might be getting in the way of them fully being who they're meant to be in this life.
I love that. I love that. A guided regression. Interesting. To see what comes up.
Yep.
Beautiful. Ainslie MacLeod, it's been such an honor, such a pleasure getting to know you. Thank you for the openness in this interview, the abundance of wisdom. It's been such a joy just getting to connect with what is an old soul, what is a young soul, what is the soul level. Like, I think these are concepts that really bridge a lot of gaps for people in terms of how they see themselves and how they see the world. I can say personally that when I came across your work, and I was telling you in the beginning, it really shifted my trajectory in the way that I approached spirituality in general. So thank you so much for the work that you're doing, the legacy that you're here to leave behind.
Well, thank you for saying, I really appreciate the kind words. And thank you so much for what you're doing. I mean, you're leaving one hell of a legacy from just what you're doing right now. It's phenomenal.
Appreciate that, brother.
And thank you for a great interview. Great questions.
Thank you. And there's many more, so we can keep this going on another round.
Give me a call anytime.
If you're open to it.
You know where to find me. Yeah.
I love that.
Well, I love talking about my work. I just wish more people knew about it. So I'm really happy I just want to get it out into the world. It's radically changed my life and a lot of other people. And, it's all part of the legacy. I just want to, I want to get to the end of this life and really feel the world's a better place for my having been here. So, yeah, thank you for giving me the opportunity to talk about what I do, and I look forward to doing it again.
Of course, that's why we're here, brother. Thank you.